There comes a time when you need to put together a cheese board. It's such a pleasure. You can actually do so much and it's so rarely wrong, but you can up your game. You can improve your skills. You can find things to the cheese board that other people don't and really excite your friends, your lovers, your family's taste buds. There's something about a cheese board that draws you in, sucks you, eats you as much as you eat it. You sit in the middle of the cheese board and everything folds in on you. You have a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and before you know it, you've eaten twice as much as you planned and you've got half the bottle down and you didn't think you'd had your first glass. Now, we can take cheese boards from so many different places. You can just go with texture, you can go with breed, you can go with region, you can go because it's lunchtime, you can go because you want something that last bit at night to draw out those final moments with your friends as you drift into the wee hours with a bottle of whiskey. A cheese board is always the best taxi home. So what we've got here is a bunch of things to exemplify what's important in a cheese board. Now, I want to be clear, there are no hard rules, absolutely no strict rules. If it works for you, it works. It's not complicated. Pleasure's the end game, you get pleasure, job done. Nonetheless, there are some tricks and tips that help us have more fun, right? Now, when you think of trying to build a cheese board, diversity is really a big deal, okay? You want a little bit of this and a little bit of that. If the one cheese was enough, you'd have one cheese. Not to mess with one cheese, but more on that later. Think about your audience. Who is coming to dinner? Is it just you? In which case, choose your favorites. But if there's a vegetarian or someone who's trying to, who doesn't like blue cheese or something like that, play to them as well. The joy is in the sharing. Secondly, strengths. It's very important to understand that your cheese board is going to be at the end of the meal, and as such, probably needs to be a powerful cheese board. You've probably punched it out of the park with a big bit of meat or maybe a curry or something like that. Thirdly, don't be afraid to play around, okay? It's just fun. It's just there. So experiment. Always have something on the cheese board that you know is going to surprise your audience. That's what they're going to remember. The surprises are always the cool bits. So how much do you need? So if you need if it's a 4-course meal, then probably 50 grams per person in total is going to be enough. If it's the main event of cheese is where it's at, then maybe 160, 180 grams per person. If it's a small part of the cheese board, like we've got here, when we've got other things to play with, there may be bread, there may be salami, there may be cornichon, then I'll bring the cheese back on. But as a rough rule of thumb, 100 grams, a little less than a quarter pound of cheese, a person should see you through. So divide your 100 grams by the number of cheeses. So if you've got 5 cheeses, that'd be 20 grams per person. 10 people, 200 gram pieces of cheeses. 5 200 gram pieces of cheeses. Now that might be a bit complicated. Sometimes camembert only comes in 250 grams, but work it out. Use that as your rule of thumb. So that's 100 grams in total per person. So how many cheeses? Now for me, this is a direct relation to how many people. You've got lots of people, you can go wild. You've got just 3 or 4 people, 2 or 3 cheeses is where it's going to be at, okay? Too many cheeses for too few people, the cheeses end up too small, and as we come on to in a minute, small cheeses are a big problem. I think of there as being basically 5 different styles of cheese board, and we'll go through them on the amount of cheese. Number 1, a 1 cheese cheese board. I love 1 cheese board. I love 1 cheese. Why? Because you can get it in perfect condition and you'll find the absolute match in the wine. And I really like that moment. It really proves the power of cheese and wine love when you have a 1 cheese board. It's very relaxed, it's very slow, there's no pressure on the cheese, the wine, or the assembled company. And you can slip that 1 cheese board in between the courses. Just pop it in there before the dessert. People really will like it. They can nibble away while they're just discussing the important events of the day. The 3 cheese board. This is the classic. The one that you'll see at the end of the aisle in the supermarket come Christmas time. There'll be a hard like a cheddar, there'll be a soft like a brie, and there'll be a blue like Stilton. That's the perfect cheese board from a simplicity perspective. It'll reproduce on ploughman's lunches and that kind of thing. Once you've got your 3 cheeses that you really like. Maybe when you're up again to the 5 cheese board. Those 3 core cheeses that everyone loves are sitting there in the middle, but you might want to pop on a goat's cheese, a sheep's cheese, a washed rind cheese, a flavoured cheese, something that really takes them, or maybe something place you've recently been, you want to show them your cheese that you've discovered. That's the time. Build it around that core centre, then up to 5 cheeses. Once you've gone past 5 cheeses, you're into what you might call this. Like, okay, we're here for fun now. We're going to pack it out and we'll start adding things to the cheese board because it's no longer just about the cheese. It's a full immersive experience. I've got sun-dried tomatoes. I've got Parmesan, not a typical cheese for the cheese board. I'll come back to that later. I've got 3 different types of salami. I would have gone for maybe something like what my family call flat ham, the Parma hams, the Serranos, the Ibericos. I like a bit of that. That's very good. Roll a bit of soft cheese inside it and you begin to play with cheese on the cheese board. I've gone for pickled onions. I've gone for pickled whole garlic cloves. Olives, so obvious. Don't forget them if you like them. 2 different types of tomatoes. I've got sun-dried tomatoes, I've got fresh tomatoes. That depends on the kind of day. Fresh tomatoes might not be right at the end of the meal. Sun-dried tomatoes goes beautifully with brie. Biscuits, I've gone for 2 different styles here. This one is made by a company called Peter's Yard, which I don't know if you can get outside the UK, but is probably my favourite UK one. I like this. Really good for soft cheeses. It gives a lot of texture. I find texture terribly important with my biscuits. Flavours relatively low key, so I've got a real sort of brand vibe, and I like that. But I also like with my Scottish roots, my oat cakes. Don't mess with the digestive. Really good. A lot of people think the digestive is a bit kind of cheap, you know, it's not really going there. Really good on a cheese board. Find one that's a little more funky than just boring around if you can, but otherwise don't have a problem with it. I find it's particularly nice, again, with the soft cheeses like bries and camemberts. I've got a manchego here. Let's have a little bit of that. Ugh. Distinctive tire tread rind. Now the classic one with this is manchego, which I'm sure half of you were screaming at the camera. Yes, the manchego, the membrillo, pardon me. Membrillo just means quince in Spanish. The moisture in the membrillo and the fruit really goes with the salty sweetiness of the manchego. That really is good. That one's gone really down well. But you can also go with some vegetables. I've just gone for some very straightforward capsicum here, some sweet pepper. That can just be like a palate cleanser. I mean, you can go with apples or grapes, very good. But pepper is also very good as a palate cleanser between cheeses. So I've gone for, there's a chili jam here. There's a real ale chutney here. That's going to suit something like this. Great caffili here, or maybe a bit of cheddar. A chili jam can stand up to things like the Gruyere and the Parmesan, which I'll come on to again, as I say in a moment. Let's talk about Parmesan as a cheese board cheese. Nobody does it, okay? Nobody does it. They are wrong. Parmesan is the most flexible and probably important cheese board cheese there is, right? And by Parmesan, I'm probably being mean to the other great Grana cheeses like Grana Padano. So let's not say Parmesan, let's say the Grana cheeses. That's what we've got here. These cheeses have got so much deliciousness. Oh, you should be here. Come and try this. It's absolutely stunning. Parmesan and balsamic vinegar is just one of the great ones. You can have Parmesan and balsamic vinegar at any stage of the day. You can have it when you get home from work. You can have it like a little aperitif with a little bit of sherry or wine or a sweet white or something like that before the meal begins. You can then go into it and have it on a cheese board in the starter as a decoration, maybe around some salami. You can move into the cheese board and have it on the board as a natural mix. Maybe you've got 3 or 4 cheeses with perfect matches. And this one will really spike you on. People will pick at this. It's like adult pick and mix sweets. Go for it. Don't let Parmesan stay in the fridge next time you have dinner. Now I've got here a goat's milk called Harborne Blue. And I've chosen a fig dressing, a fig jam. I've chosen a fig jam. Now this Harborne Blue is quite a punchy little cheese. It's got quite a lot of a sort of trigeminal mouthfeel, maybe a bit of astringency. It's also got quite some saltiness, but the power behind it, big flavours behind it. sometimes get masked. You bring that down with a little bit of something like a chili jam. It gives both texture and sweetness and smoothness with extra flavour. Balance sometimes means reining in some flavours. Balancing off with something like a fig jam is sometimes saying to the cheese, I don't need all of you right now, just this beautiful bit here. And what you accompany with just softens off some of those sharp corners. It's the same with wines. A lot of wines have quite a bit of sharpness, a little bit of aggression, and with the right cheese, that falls away and becomes a beautiful, I don't know, from a cacophony to a symphony. And that is a wonderful thing. When choosing a drink for a cheese board of this size, there just isn't one that will match with everything. There isn't. Such a drink has not been built. Okay, so if it is a beautiful match for your, I don't know, what have we got here? It's Waterloo. It's very British, but buttercuppy kind of brie style. It's just not going to match this Bath Blue or the Montagnolo from Bavaria. There's no drink that can do that. So you do need sometimes to go for some staples that are good friends with cheeses, but not lovers of any. That way you won't pierce any cheese off. So port is an absolute favourite, but there are a lot of others. So when it comes to choosing a wine, sometimes the right answer is a gentle accompaniment, not a match. A lot of white wines can do that absolutely brilliantly, particularly some of those oaky ones, which leave a sort of a smoothie, creamy texture, but with enough acidity to take on the cheese. Amongst those wines that pair particularly well with whole cheese boards, which are friends to whole cheese boards, fortified wines are particularly good. And I would include in that with things like sherries, ports. Give it a go. See what you find. They can be a lot of fun. Which begs the question of whiskey, gin, tequila, rum, vodka. Do they work? You might have to check out some of my other videos about that lot. But the answer is yes, they do. You have to choose your cheeses quite carefully, but yes, they do. I am particularly favourite of some of the ones that go with rum and whiskey. When you are selling at a deli or farm shop or somewhere that has a good cheese counter, or whether you're a restaurant that needs to make money at the end of the meal with the extra cheese board, you've got to be quite careful. Cheese can go very expensive very quickly. When you're putting that stuff together to make a really effective cheese board in a restaurant, portion control is essential, which means you're going to lean towards cheeses that really max the flavour, really hold the attention, and you're supporting those cheeses with maybe a one-to-one accompaniment that really leaves the consumer, the eater, the diner bowled over by the extraordinary flavours that can come to them. Think condition. So think about the number of cheese boards you're sending out on any one evening, and can you keep your cheeses dribbling in at the exact perfect condition and at the right temperature? That brings us to temperature. Temperature is such an important thing. My top trick is that you should leave it in the fridge. You need to bring it out. Use slate stone marble cheese boards kept carefully at room temperature, and cut your cheese thin. I promise you, a thinnish cheese, about that much, on a slate stone or marble cheese board will come to temperature in 2 to 3 minutes without damaging anybody. So that's my top trick. Use something that draws the cheese back to room temperature nice and quickly. Cheese trolleys are fantastic. If you've got a restaurant near you that does really good cheese trolley, I bet you they're drawing in customers on that one thing alone. Very difficult to do. Really got to make a feature out of it. It's really brilliant when it's done well, but it's hard. So you need good cheese skills in the house. The same goes for a cheese counter in a retail. Make sure you're stocking the right number of cheeses so that they are coming in and getting out of the counter quickly. In retail, turnover is the same problem, same solution, same opportunity. You need to have the right number of cheese in the cheese counter to match your sales. So if you have too many, 1 or 2 of those cheeses are going to stick around, not in good condition. You have too few, you don't get a chance to get them at point because they're moving so fast, and the customers are going to be a bit bored of them quite quickly. One of the most successful cheesemongers in the UK, a guy called Andy Swensko, he's famous for having a small number of cheeses which he hand-picks, hand-affineurs, and makes special for him. And he's made a big business out of it, a really successful, honest business. So welcome to my house. At Land of Charlie T, this is the place you will get a cheese board to die for. I don't want you to know, I've got a little cornichon. I'm going to put a little bit of sun-dried tomato. I'm going to wrap it in this bit of Milano salami. And I think blue cheese, maybe blue cheese. This is Bath Blue. This won the World Cheese Awards 10 years ago. Graham Padfield, south of Bath. Let's see how we get on there. I've spoken to a lot of chefs. They always over-respect the cheesemaker. Okay, how can you do that? Surely you can't over-respect. And I tell you they do, because what they're doing is they're not experimenting with the cheesemaker's cheeses. The cheesemaker just wants them to eat the cheeses, just love the cheese, respect the cheese, but don't feel the cheese has to stay exactly as it is. So I've got a little bit of chili jam, fennel salami, finocchione, and a little bit of South of England brie. Here we have kind of cheese rolls. I'm going to make my little. I'm not using the nori. I'm not using the seaweed. I've got a little salami roll again. We're going to have a very small cornichon again. I think we might have 2 peppers for extra sweetness. In fact, I'm going to go with a little bit of pickled onion. Is that a bit too big with my pickled? These pickled onions are pickled in balsamic vinegar, which gives a little extra sweetness. I mean, I love onions anyway. So what cheese shall we have there? I think Gruyere. A little bit of Gruyere. It's not Gruyere down here, pardon me. It's Comté. No, maybe not. There's a bit of Montagnolo. Nice, sweet, creamy, not too salty. So go find your cheese, find your cheese board, pull things out of the fridge, just play. You will love it.